Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Defacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight, commentator and economist Jargal Defacto. Welcome.
Hello.
And I am Milena Mendes. Thank you so much for being with us, and we love to hear your thoughts. So on Twitter, use #Jargal_Defacto. Also, we're live on Facebook at V Television. Coming up on the show tonight, Oil got mine to decide course for domestic energy consumption. UNICEF makes call for action against the life-threatening smog. Mongol Bank reports fair results from banking sector audit. And 5 traditional wrestlers eliminated from competition after testing positive for performance enhancers. We start talking about the OT power supply. The Oyu Tolgoi copper mine is deciding how it will guarantee electricity supply over the coming years, it said on Friday, after casting doubt on the government's plan to build a new power plant at the Tavan Tolga coal mine. Oyu Tolgoi must transition from its foreign energy supply to domestic within the next 4 years, Reuters reported Energy Minister Tserenpil Davasuren as saying after the cancellation of an energy agreement. The minister said that the Tavan Tolgoi power plant could be finished within 4 years, which will give Oyu Tolgoi the domestic supply of energy required by a 2009 investment agreement. Oyu Tolgoi, however, said this past Friday that the project was not yet at a stage that it could be finished within that time frame, and that it might go ahead to develop its own power plant at the OT mine. So please, Jargal, tell us, what is this Oyu Tolgoi's energy agreement and what has changed?
When the OT project was approved by the agreement with the government, by the so-called investment agreement, they agreed that within 4 years since operations, OT will start consuming energy produced in Mongolia.
Okay.
So far, the situation is different. Mongolia is spending about $2 million per year for purchasing electric power from China to OT project. And this agreement was interrupted, meaning that they have signed another agreement in 2014 with that time government of Mongolia. You know, we keep changing government.
Right.
That TT will make their own power stations, then they will buy. So they stopped at the time ticking of 4 years. And then suddenly, 3 days ago, the government said we stopped that agreement. Why? The question was, first, this within 4 years have passed, nothing is made, like many other big projects in the country. So now that means OT is to purchase that power within 4 years from now. If they will not purchase domestic energy by any reasons, they will have a good reason to stop whole investment agreement, which will jeopardize whole project. So they, knowingly very well what is the approach, now all are concerned and everybody is concerned. OT made a special statement the other day. That statement says that OT will continue on project starting, which they have initially also suggested to make own power stations at the site of OT, which is 200 kilometers away from the largest this coal mine called Tavan Tolgoi. So now the concern is, will they do their own one? Will it have any sense? Because OT is not energy producer. They may be in such a situation, according to their statement, that they have to. And will they continue? Can they complete all this project within 4 years? Because this project is a very large project. It requires more than $1.5 billion, and it's 500,000 megawatt power stations, capacity power stations. So they said, we will try. But the major reason behind why all this is happening is, I find, first, I think it's about quality of our governance issue. Mongolian government's kind of failure. Why? Because First, Mongolian governments are kept changing very frequently. On the average, a government since democratic revolution is 1.5 year. So more than that, the new one is always kind of neglecting or the previous one's decisions or
There's no
avoiding.
consistency.
That's the whole thing. Second, there is always conflict of interests. I personally find that the companies, the large government, either ministerials or who are making decisions, if many companies are connected with our decision makers, if those big projects are not connected with them, it usually don't go. Unfortunately, it's conflict of interests. Okay. Second major reason is it's our Mongolian government institutional capacity issue. First, OT investment agreement was approved by the parliament before. But when this second agreement we talked about signed, all ministers were the ministers who also were a member of parliament. They knew exactly and why they knew exactly that this agreement is going to be amendment to the investment agreement, and thus they should be approved by the parliament, which they did not do. So that's why this current minister is coming out and said that that was illegal. Very easy to divert all these decisions. Also, it is a matter of confusion of executive power and legislative power in this country. It was always in that way. And the third issue, is particular about this contract issue, is interestingly, this OT statement said that we are pulling out also because the Tawan Tolga power stations consortium winners, which was MCS and Marubeni, Japanese company. Looks like Marubeni had left the consortium. And thus, Oyutlova finds there is no strategic investor inside of the project, so why we should give a guarantee or participate? That's, I think, their concern first. And second, I think Marubeni is also tired of having Mongolian governments keep changing their decisions and staying idle for a long time. Probably they are tired of the two. But most importantly, they required real guarantee of financing for these power stations. And now we have a state unit, government unit for this project. They said, oh, we found money from World Bank, ADB, now we only need a real guarantee. Initially, they were requiring for 30 years. Rio said no. Now there's a 15 years. Rio looks like still says no. Why? Because for Rio to give this guarantee during all these long years, it is quite much commitment and it's expensive. Every financial guarantee requires certain asset aside to put in a special account because it is a guarantee of that. So Rio looks like is not eager to do so. So they have to, I think they will continue to negotiate again, the terms, the way how the Rio will participate. But one thing is clear, that 2025, February 25, that day, OT from last week, OT is to buy domestic produced coal power produced energy. Otherwise, they can annul that investment agreement. So it's a big concern.
It is.
And big concern also for OT investors who usually are some pension funds in California or Australia. There are a lot of funds are investing into this project now. The project is always, the conditions keep the government changing, so it is not an easy, I think, play to do from Rio side.
This news actually follow reports weeks ago that the power plant number 5 project had been called off, if you remember that. So Mongolia has clearly been having such a hard time getting new power stations online. Can we blame government,
certainly
investment?
For whom else? Because government keep changing their decisions. From government to government, they are making new decisions. So this is inconsistency of this executive power. That's the problem of this country. It is not the problem of natural resources. It is not the problem of the a lack of talents. It's a lack of governance in this country. That's what we should fight for. We should we should demand the government to be more transparent with their conflict of interests. So which keeps going on, and we don't know yet how much we are making progress. But one thing is clear, that the people demand normal government, transparent government.
You know, what do you think is the risk if Mongolia continues to drag its feet into development of new electricity generation facilities, because nothing has been done?
Yeah, risk is now, you see, coal-bedded power stations are being financed very hardly, in particular since Paris Agreement about sustainable development, about cutting CO2. So it's very hard for AAA companies to finance this sort of coal-bed power stations. Now probably some development institutions like ADB, maybe they have to help their member countries. In such a country like Mongolia, where we have only reliable source, we have a power, wind, but we don't have capacity for that. Now today what we have is a coal. We need coal power stations. And very people now are reluctant to finance it. That's the risk. That's also Rio, I think, is considering as a risk.
Right. Thank you so much for your thoughts. And now we're going to move on to a subject that we've been talking for so long now, which is the air pollution crisis here in Mongolia, especially in UB. Smog in UB is causing a public health crisis, especially among children, with treatment costs likely to put the cash-strapped country under increasing strain, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, said on Friday. The government needed to take urgent action to limit smog-induced health problems, UNICEF and Mongolia's Public National Center for Public Health said in a study, adding that a failure to act could push treatment costs up by a third by 2025, amounting to a further 4.9 billion tugruk, or almost $2 million a year in capital. UNICEF says the air pollution is the cause of stillbirth, preterm birth, lower birth weight, pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma, inhibited brain development, and of course death. It recommends education campaigns, how people can protect themselves with devices such as face masks and cleaner indoor conditions for kindergartens. Unfortunately, we have to keep talking about this, and it's going to keep grabbing headlines in Mongolia every winter.
That's the whole problem. The problems are coming. We are making definition from all the sides, all the spectrums, and the problem keeps staying there. It is already not only disaster, it's already a tragedy now. This document says the children in particular, pregnant women are the victims, the first victims, and it also said that if we don't solve this problem, next 8 years, or two budget years, it will be very heavy burden on healthcare system of the country, causing 24 billion tugriks loss. They find the dynamics of costs this year, and if it will continue like this because of this sort of the smoke, then this kind of loss we will have, and we have a very poor fund anyway. It's a developing country, and then this insurance fund, healthcare fund altogether cannot handle all these problems. Well, and also you said that now masks, whatever you use, and all this recommendation comes. So that's what about this current situation, description. So, but the issue is, what shall we do? So here, I think there are two solutions. One is housing. Second is new source of heating. On housing, today Mongolia has so-called mortgage 8%. It's called discounted rate mortgage program. Discount means 8% per year, which is 2 or 3 times less than the current ordinary loan, which is too artificially low. Though 8% is still high, but this so-called program, this discounted rate mortgage program, is distorting competition, and I think giving a negative impact on the housing problem. Because announcement of the government, and in spite of their promises, continuation of this program now, What does it make bad for the business? They keep increasing housing prices more. It stays there like this. And yet 30,000 apartments are not being sold on the market, empty, ready but empty. Because the construction company and commercial banks who financing them hope this mortgage program will continue, and they don't change price. If it was a free price, if there was no this unrealistic program existing, unrealistic I'm saying that because the remaining 16% the ordinary people pay through taxes, through budget. If this program will not continue, then price will down. Yeah, there will be a couple, 2, 3 companies will be bankrupt, maybe a couple banks following, which is normal. If they did it wrong, they have to pay.
Exactly.
So then, since they have announced the program, the price came twice more, twice increased, and they stay there forever. So I think this is the issue of housing problem we face. And if they stop this program, it will be good solutions towards making housing prices twice less. That's what I think first. Second, we don't have a gas. But many countries who had a similar problem, including London, Beijing, take it. Those were replacing their system of heating with gas. Our closest case is in Russia. Kovitkin deposit nearby Baikal, very rich gas deposit, natural gas deposit of Russia. They put pipe, around to the north of Baikal into China. But now, if they do it down of Baikal, which will go to Ulan-Ude, the Buryat capital city, then from there we take to Ulaanbaatar the whole pipelines. That will be a very good trade-off, making 2 solutions: one, power; second, heating and smoke. So maybe now the Russians are against Mongolians making hydropower stations on Silenga River, which all the large river coming into Baikal, and they instead suggest, don't make it, we will give you electricity. Maybe we will ask them to give us a gas
instead.
So let's have a pipeline. Let's see what is this investment financing schemes. How can they can help? How much they will sell? I think that will be good bargain with Russians to address this problem. And through this problem, we address this issue of smoke.
And if we could compare how the situation was in the past, like 5 years ago, what the government has tried and what it's trying now, what's working today?
Well, initially this stove, they have been changing. It start to work, efficient, less smoke. But because it was 95% also discounted, the people have bought it, used it with 7% on the rate of the cost. Then they have resold it to other people outside of the Ulaanbaatar city. So too much discount is always distort the market, and that's how they value. They will reuse their own old stove that makes more raw smoke from their chimney, which is polluting the air. And really, we haven't seen any substantial win on the smoke in this country. And as you can see, even now, you can feel it. But bad news, we Mongolians forget the smoke in April usually.
Yeah.
And we start crying from November. So that's a vicious cycle we do every year. Politicians, Mongolians, we all together. We sing the same song every year, and we pollute the air. We lost our children's life on that. Why the small kids to be a victim of our mistake?
That is something to really urgently do something about. And we have to move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about Mongolia's banks that are getting a positive review from a close study of their books and the valuations of their assets, according to the Bank of Mongolia. The central bank reported this week that banks demonstrated that they met the capital requirements set by an asset quality review, or AQR, that was required as part of the 5.5 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund that we've also talked about recently. Results show that banks reached the threshold for capital, which was 1.9% of the GDP in 2017, the central bank said about the report. Capital requirements will be raised even higher in 2018, it added. Audits were administered by PricewaterhouseCoopers. Jargal, what are capital requirements? Please tell our viewers, and what does it tell about the health of the banking sector in Mongolia?
This asset quality review report that we were waiting for a long time finally came out, but it was too short, just one-page statement by the president or governor of the central bank. I'm not happy with that. It's too short. We were compared with the expectations we had, and it was too general. He said the required capital, equity capital of the banks is about 2% or 1.9% of GDP size. What does that mean? We have about 10 billion US dollar economy, and 2% is of this economy, or 2% of GDP is about 200 million US dollar equity capital to be increased. If you think about that, it is substantial change. It will be requiring substantial addition to the equity capital, along with the minimum required capital that imposed on the banks now. So that's why I find it's very too general statement by the governor of central bank. But though there is one interesting fact which says 90% of the assets, credits, were examined by this group, which is good, substantial amount, 90% of all total credit balance. So, okay, they did it, and they came to this conclusion about this 2% of GDP equivalent requirement for increasing equity capital. So, now, commercial banks are 95% of financial market of Mongolia. We have only 5% other sectors like the stock exchange, the insurance, all the other part. 95% is very big. So it's kind of a one-leg economy only. And here, this whole money is consisting of banks' capital, which is not enough to cover the bad assets they have made. So, so this is the first requirement they are asking, which is normal, but what they are not reporting is what they will do with this bad asset they are recovering from the additional equity capital. What will happen with the bad assets? Because I'm asking the question because there is a state bank. By law, we should not have a state bank, but somehow it was based on the bankrupt 2-3 other commercial banks, they made state bank. So now the question is, who is coming to the state bank, who is not coming to Ulaanbaatar Bank, on which criteria? And what is the bad asset of the state bank in particular? What you will do with the bad asset of that bank? No information yet. Another issue is, will we allow foreign banks to the country? When and how? This was not clear. So my conclusion is the final aim of this asset quality review was not that review itself. It was made for the purpose of increasing asset quality, increasing competitiveness of the banks, competition of the banks, and finally, if it's right, they could decrease the interest rate of bank credit interest rates, which is very high, 16%, on the 24%. So we are not yet clear how these purposes are being met, these goals are met, first. Second, all commercial banks should be transparent because they use public money. 90% of the money they use is public money. As such, they should report publicly, not only this balance for quarter, a year, or independent auditing report, but also that review report. Because we want to know which bank is, what kind of health they have. So this is still missing. And I think also for that, government not only should, the banks not only should be competitive and transparent, but in Mongolia, the government should stop the control of the price, which will give healthy signal to normal economy, which will benefit from also from the money, whatever they will receive.
Thank you so much for helping our viewers to understand it better. And unfortunately, we have to close up very soon, but we still have time for the last topic. 5 traditional Mongolian wrestlers were failed a doping test screening for performance enhancement substances following in the wake of similar scandals for Russian athletes in Pyeongchang 2018 Olympics. Reports in news.mn did not reveal what banned substances were found, but that competitors would be disqualified from competitions. What are your thoughts on that, Jorgel?
Well, this one, a little bit correction, because it is from our summer festival, Nata. And they have, now we have a new rules among the sportsmen that they will, for example, in this case, wrestling's out of 532 or so wrestlers, they will test only 36 of them who was the winner of the last rounds, okay? And out of 35, 5 were tested positive. What does it mean? That means if they got certain ranking higher or certain award high ranking, all will be annulled first. Secondly, 2 years ban on further competition. If it is repeated again, they will be banned for 6 years, which is basically stopping his sport or career. So this sort of rules are implemented because of these dopings. You know, how come you have a dopings and you win the other people who have not used this intensifying or energizing substances, and you are winning? It is like, you know, it is at least not honest, right? So that's the whole what the country wants, how the Olympic movement wants, because at the end we need healthy sport. What is the purpose of sport? To make your life healthier. But that doping does not make like a drug. So I think Mongolia has joined that line, which is good, and which is good that they have found out. By the way, this test is very expensive because we select this 36 persons numbers and all this blood, and then we send to Korea. In Korea, it's very expensive testing. At the end, Korea doesn't know the name; it's just numbers. With the number, this is the result. I think it's very healthy, and I think the testing itself is healthy, but unfortunately the result is not healthy, so we need to improve the competitive spirit that is usually inside of Mongolians. We want honest fight.
We want honesty in everything, right? And we have to close up our show tonight, so thank you so much for staying with us. And Jorgel, do you have any last thoughts for us tonight?
Thank you very much. We had this program at 7 o'clock in Mongolian previously, and both will be on our website, and next week on our Defacto Gazeta. Please subscribe by putting your email in jargaldefacto.com. Thank you very much.
If you missed the beginning of the program, no worries. We are live on Facebook, and the show is going to be available also on V Television page on Facebook. Have a great week, Mongolia.
Good night.
Goodbye.